The Danish Deception, Part 18. Where did we leave off at? Oh yeah, 34 cents. So I look at his bank balance and it's 34 cents. And at this point it's 1 a.m., which is why I was super sneaky with the way I got into my friend's car and went to the ATM because I didn't want him to hear the garage and be like, where's she going? So when I came home, I literally popped melatonin and went to bed. I didn't even want to open that can of worms because it's late at night. So the next morning I wake up, I look at him, I go, I have something to bring up to you and you better not lie. And I don't even think you're going to be able to lie. He goes, what is it? Then I pull up the phone because I, took a picture of his bank balance. I'm like, this is actually the balance in your bank account. And he just looks at me and he's at a loss for words. And for a narcissist, that's the most beautiful thing in the world when they have literally nothing to say. But I remember just looking at him and saying, you're a liar. You don't have any money in your account. You're supposed to be the one responsible for bills. And I know you're gambling. And he told me, I am 100% not gambling. I promise you the transfer was supposed to hit and it didn't hit. And I felt like if I told you I didn't receive the money, you would have thought I was lying. So let me get this straight. Instead of telling me the truth, you lied to me because you were afraid that I was going to think you were lying. Makes perfect sense. So at that point, I'm just so irritated and just honestly disgusted by him. And I told him, well, listen, I don't want to be around you today until you tell me the truth of what's going on. Because at this point, I felt like he was gambling and I just didn't want to talk to him. So I luckily had a few showings, went to the showings, and my best friend, Neka, who lives here in Dallas, calls me. And I'm not even kidding. I answer the phone and I immediately start crying. And she's like, come over. I said, okay, I'm on my way. So I go to her house and I sit her down and I tell her everything. And this was just a very, very, very heartbreaking time for me because this is now another close friend that I'm letting in. And I'm telling you all, when I let it out, I let it out. And it was just so heartbreaking. And she was such a good friend. She just listened to me. She didn't tell me you need to leave him, even though at this point, I felt like there's no way he's going to change, but I'm still so blinded by love and still very much brainwashed to think that this man is everything to me. And I decided to go back home and I had a conversation with him and I said, listen, I'm just going to start distancing myself right now. I don't know where to go from here. I feel like you're always lying to me and it's getting really, really difficult. And so it was a couple days and, we're still like getting along, but he can definitely tell that I'm pulling back because I still know that there's something he's hiding. And something to keep in mind is that he has a Danish phone and he has a US phone because when he got his work visa approved, he got a US number. Especially when he was applying for jobs, he didn't want to put like a Danish phone number, which makes sense. And so for the most part, he was using his US phone. While he was here, he would use his Danish phone like at nighttime. But his US phone was what he used to communicate with everyone. So the Danish phone, he actually leave that out all the time. And so he was downstairs, I was upstairs. I see his Danish phone on the nightstand and I'm not ashamed to admit that at this point I had been going through his phone very frequently. So I open up his phone, go to the Safari page, open up, see the gambling website that's just right in front of my face. And I am just gut wrenched. And I can see how much money he can gamble and what he's betting on. And I kid you not, first of all, it was $5,000 that he was gambling. And second of all, he was gambling on the most random sports in the most random countries that I'm like, what is this? Like, this makes no sense. And I go downstairs with his phone and I'm bawling my eyes out at this point because I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm exhausted, I'm so tired. And at this point, I'm asking myself, like, how can I still be in love with this man when he causes me this much pain? And the craziest part was that he was still lying. He said, I told you I watch sports on that website. And I was like, you're an idiot. Like, you are an idiot. Like, you're gambling. I can see the money in there. So either you want to be honest with me or get out of the house because I don't even want to look at your face. And so he keeps trying to lie to me, keeps trying to bullshit me. And then I'd say, you know what? I'm just going to pack my bags and just go to my friend's house. And then he said, okay, I'll leave. I'll go to the gym. I'll go run some errands. So he leaves the house and I'm sitting there. The first thing I do is call crypto, and I'm literally in tears. And I'm like, I'm so, so, so sorry. I don't even know what to say. And he said, Anyeka, this is literally not your fault. You are doing everything you can to be a supportive spouse to this man, and it's not your fault that he cannot stop lying to you. And he had told me previously, like, we had owed them $200,000, but he said the amount of crypto that my ex had borrowed from him at that time was 160K. And so he said, listen, because that's the amount that he borrowed at the time, obviously the crypto had gone up. I think it had gone up to like 300K at that point. And when his wife had brought it up to me, it had gone up to 200K, gone up even higher. He said, how about you guys just pay us the original amount that was borrowed? And I said, I just feel like that's not fair to you. And he said, I promise you I'm okay. Another reason to just love crypto. He's amazing. And one thing he said to me was that if you're not seeing him want the progress for himself, that's when there's a problem. So you need to know when you've had enough, and you need to know if he's not taking this seriously and taking his recovery seriously. And I agreed with him. And, you know, I will be honest, like, I, in that moment, was not ready to leave him. I still was fully in love with him, still fully brainwashed into thinking that he was this great person. So crypto said we could skip that month's payment and then pick back up the next month, because he knew I was, you know, carrying everything on my back, and he didn't want me to bleed myself dry because of my ex's issues. And, you know, it's kind of messed up that I was even the one that was having these conversations with him and not my ex. And I just took ownership because I've never owed anyone money before. And I wanted to do what was right, and I wanted to be respectful of him. And so I also told him, just so you know, like, he has a business account that's going to be opened back up in July, because, you know, it had an 18-month hold. So once that's lifted, we'll be able to pay you back the rest of the money that we owe you. So keep that in mind. We're going to obviously pick back up on the payment, so you will be made whole. And he said, okay, that's totally fine. And so we left it at that. My ex comes home, and I sit him down, and this is the first time that I bring up divorce. And I tell him, right now, I don't know if I can be in this marriage anymore, and I really am contemplating filing for divorce and calling my parents and telling them everything. And he said, please, like, I cannot lose you. I'm going to get better. He said, I want to get better. Like, I want to get better for me and for you. And so I said, at this point, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit back and watch you, and I'll decide if I want to stay with you. And he said, okay, I'll prove it to you. So over the course of the next, I will say, 4 months, this was October 2024. And over the course of the next 4 months, like I said, I'm not going to just sit here and ramble. I'm trying to get to the good part, guys. I promise. I remember his mom had come back to visit us for Thanksgiving. She met my parents. It went great. The following month, my mom came back, spent Christmas with us. Things were going good. And I remember when January hit, I was like almost a little bit excited, because I was like, this is the year the business account's going to open up. And it had been about 3 months since his relapse, and I felt like he was making a lot of effort to get better. He was going to GA meetings, he was going to therapy, he was having money in his account, all the good signs. And he had the 2 apartments in Copenhagen and was putting in a notice to kick the tenants out so that he could sell those apartments. So basically the plan was to use the business account to pay for our wedding, to pay off crypto, and then we were gonna sell the 2 apartments, and that was gonna be like our base to start like investing and build our foundation here in Dallas. And we had kind of delayed wedding planning because, you know, we wanted to be smart financially. We're not gonna plan a wedding a year after all this stuff happened. And also, like, you know, we wanted to prioritize paying back crypto. But we were looking at the numbers, and with the business account, we were gonna be able to make crypto whole, and we'd have some extra money for the wedding. And in addition to that, you know, we were both making an income, so we were starting to talk about wedding plans. Obviously, I'm Nigerian, and my parents are very traditional, and I love my culture, and I was excited to do a traditional wedding. And I was talking to my parents about what I wanted, and I was like, maybe we could do a wedding in Nigeria. And, you know, they were really excited about it. They were hyped to plan it. You know, they loved my ex, and, you know, we were getting excited. And so My mom said that they were going to go starting to look at venues and all the things. And at this point, I kind of figured that my parents were going to cover the traditional wedding because we were going to cover the white wedding. When I say white wedding, I mean white dress. So traditional wedding, the Nigerian wedding, white wedding is like white dress walking down the aisle. So in case you hear me say that, not because I'm marrying a white guy. So I'm talking wedding plans with my mom, and she brings up finances. And that's when she proceeds to tell me that my ex has told her that he's going to pay for both weddings in full. And I'm sitting there just confused because I'm thinking about the money that we have coming in and our two salaries. And I'm like, okay, we're good to pay back crypto and we're good for our white wedding, but we don't have any wiggle room to pay for an additional wedding. So I call him up, and at this point I'm angry. I go, why did you commit to paying for a wedding without telling me? And I will continue on in part 19.